Hey gamers, motion controls are awesome. For most of the motion controls lifetime, it's been regarded as a gimmick, not for true gamers. They're notoriously difficult to control, unintuitive, and they try to make us exercise? Yeah, good try Nintendo. Anyways, once the Wii craze died down and Nintendo moved on to the Wii U gamepad, motion controls mostly left the scene. We've seen blips of motion augmented play here and there, mostly VR games and Just Dance, but nothing that was regarded as impressively innovative to the public eye. Even though the overall quality of motion controls has gone up, the fidelity of the Switch Joy-Cons is pretty wild. So with a decade plus of motion control development since the Wii, has application of this technology improved any? Yes. I think motion controls still have room to further develop, but now it can be considered more than just a gimmick. Today, we're going to look at some games that have implemented motion controls in an interesting fashion. I was playing the new Mario Kart Tour and you can play it with touch and tilt controls. I don't know if this type of control system has a name already, but I couldn't find it, so I'm calling it Multivariable controls. Today's video will mostly be an observation of how this control system has been used in a couple games. I might explore this idea in more depth later, but I just wanted to toss some preliminary ideas around first. Startown Lite, y'all. I'm defining multivariable controls as a single action controlled through simultaneous inputs. One of the clearest examples I've seen of multivariable control is in Breath of the Wild, where you shoot arrows. You direct the arrow with a joystick and finesse your aim with motion control. The Splatoon games have a similar control setup, and to my understanding, many pro players use this technique. Now, I wouldn't consider a run button to be a part of multivariable controls. They don't simultaneously control a single action as much as they do change the state of that action. Anyways, I think the system works well for shooter gameplay on a console. Motion controls don't necessarily handle the broad aiming motion well, and joysticks struggle with minor adjustments. But together, the two complement each other for a smooth gameplay experience. I'd love to see this system implemented and iterated on in other genres of game. Like, for example, let's take it back to Mario Kart Tours. In this game, the multivariable control is steering. The two featured systems are touch control drifting and motion control churning, and I think there is a gray area here. You could argue that these don't qualify for my multivariable controls definition, since drifting changes the state of the turn, but you can use motion controls while in the drift, and on top of that, they complement each other in a similar way. Drifting handles sharp turns, while tilting enables small adjustments. Unfortunately, even though these two have synergy on paper, actual application isn't as fluid. The motion controls aren't super precise or clearly conveyed, so using them to course correct your drifting isn't the most useful, especially when using touch controls is just easier. Now there are some workarounds to this issue, the most obvious being better motion controls and a clearer indication that motion controls are being used. For example, more exaggerated character movements would help. From there, we can change how these two controls interact. Maybe once a player swipes right into a drift, they're required to use tilt controls to continue drifting. Anyways, at this point, I'm just pontificating down a huge mess of a rabbit hole. Today I just wanted to introduce the concept of multivariable controls. It's an interesting way to include mechanical gimmicks in a playstyle that isn't solely dependent on that gimmick. There's definitely room to grow, but a system that uses two inputs to better control a single mechanic is super fascinating to me. It's definitely most useful with shooting on a console game, but I think there's potential for other genres like racing. So far, there's only a handful of games that utilize this control scheme, so it might be worth revisiting this idea of multivariable controls when I find more games that use this system. If you know of any other games that I missed, let me know in the comments below. Until then, hey y'all, thanks again for watching. A quick review of Mario Kart Tours. Overall, I think it's a good adaptation. The controls still need a little bit of work, but I do like the gacha system that they have in this game where no one character is more valuable than another. They each have their rotating top value in a race with the item slot system, so it still requires a level of player skill to win. But it still just makes me want to play actual console Mario Kart at the end of the day. Anyways, next video is going to be a spooky Halloween one, so get excited for that.